and welcome to Unboxing Love video number 2.
Where we're going to be looking at expectations for going into marriage, during marriage, and expectations for the family. And I apologize if you hear any children in the background. This is always fun recording this with 2 young children in their room for rest time together.
Expectations during marriage.
Yes. So when you think about expectations before marriage, I know one thing that I sought to do was I actually came up with a list. I know many probably have been encouraged to do that, but I came up with a list, and I'll be honest, I based most of my list on Proverbs 31. And the other qualifying thing is she needed to be like my mom. As funny as that sounds, I've got a godly mother, and I definitely got someone who is like my mom.
I too made a list one time when I was in college of things that I wanted in a husband. I actually wrote it in a notebook that I pulled out of the Aaron and Liz box. So I was just paging through telling Aaron some of the humorous things I had written down about him over the years. But under qualities for a husband, I have like serious things, like I want him to be a strong leader and Christian. I want him to be involved with things in church. And then some maybe not so spiritual ones, like I want him to be a good dresser. And I feel like expectations in marriage, when you're just dating someone or getting to know them, they definitely put the best foot forward. He probably was a good dresser.
Well, I hope so. I don't know if my sisters would always agree with that as I was growing up, but at least I got her to marry me.
That's true. But, then when you get into marriage, they're not always that perfect picture as they were at the beginning. But yet I can say with full confidence they still love Aaron, whether or not he is his best dressed self.
So when I think of expectations, what were some expectations you had going into marriage itself?
I think like it's very idyllic. We like to think when we get married, like our spouse will always, be like right next to us all the time and want to do everything with us, and that it'll just be kind of like one big date that never ends.
One thing she always wants me to do is hold her hand. Though I don't mind holding her hand, there are times where I don't want to hold her hand. Expectations for myself going into marriage, I would say that I expected everything, kind of like Liz said, but being there together all the time. Expected just to be kind of seamless, yet knowing in the back of my head, people told me that it wouldn't be seamless necessarily. Our expectations were definitely a little bit different since we moved out to Washington State about 6 months after we got married, so we were definitely out there by ourselves.
And including when we first got married, I was doing student teaching and Aaron was working 3 different jobs. So we didn't really see each other a lot. So it was kind of a rude awakening to go from like your honeymoon where you're the only people together for a whole week, and then coming back to like real life, like a slap in the face to real life. But I'm thankful that God brought us through all the little challenges throughout life, whether it be to adjusting to being newlyweds or moving far away from anyone you know. And looking back now, we probably see that some of our expectations weren't so realistic, obviously. I still think he looks good in just sweatpants. And not
I'm glad I'm good in sweatpants.
No.
I do not walk around in sweatpants all the time.
That you didn't always have to be dressed for success all the time.
Some expectations that going into marriage, and then kind of continued in marriage for a while, and then you settle in a little bit. But while we were dating and engaged, I always thought Liz would be a little bit more independent, and then I wasn't really used to someone asking me if it was okay if she go grocery shopping or to go out and things like that. I'm just like, yeah, just go out. You can go grocery shopping. It's okay. You don't have to ask me for everything. I probably mistakenly said something along the lines of, I'm not your dad, I'm your husband. So you don't have to ask me for permission for all of that. But that communication is good. I'm not going to knock the communication, and that's one thing Liz has always been very good at, is communicating with me. But expectations going into it, there were just things that I thought would go a little smoother, or the expectation of, a meal ready at, come home, dinner's ready right when I get there, or
Which I was actually talking to my siblings about this not long ago. But growing up, we ate dinner like at 5 or 5:30. It was 5:30, like every night. That's when we ate dinner. And so getting married, I think I thought that's when we should always eat dinner too, because that's what we did growing up. And I was talking to my brother and sister not long ago, and we were just laughing at the fact that, when we all first got married, like we were very particular about 5:30 is when you eat dinner. And then looking back, it's just because that's when we ate growing up, because that worked with my dad's work schedule. And so, you bring some of those things into marriage. I would say that was like an expectation of like, well, this is what we do because this is what I grew up doing. And eventually your family kind of morphs into what you need as a family. There's been seasons where Aaron has coached basketball and then we don't eat till 6:30. There's been seasons where we have a newborn and so we try to eat like at 5 so we can put the kids to bed and have like an hour of quiet before the night feeding start or whatever it may be. So it's kind of a silly example, but I feel like it's a good example of how you bring things into marriage, like thinking, well, it has to be this way. And then you, by the grace of God, adapt to what your family needs and what's best for your family as a whole.
I think one thing when it comes to expectations that helped me have a level head on when expectations haven't gone my way is remembering that it is based on what God's expectations are for us in marriage, not just my own. I'm sure many of you have heard the phrase that once you got married, you found out how selfish you were. And when it comes to expectations, I think a lot of times going into marriage, we have this selfish expectation of what marriage is going to be like. And when I think of getting myself out of the picture and thinking, okay, what is God's expectations for me in marriage? And in later videos, we'll dive into a couple passages that were principles along those lines of what God expects for us in marriage and what will help our marriage strengthen in that regard. But in marriage, God still does need to be first. And looking at the biblical principles, Luke 6 talks about what's in our heart and making sure that what is in our heart is going to come out. And so when it comes to expectations, if we're not careful, what we expect and it doesn't go right isn't what we expect. Sometimes if we don't have a others-oriented heart, we're going to end up lashing out at our wife or a wife and a husband or even at our children. In those regards, what are some expectations you thought of as we started a family?
I think, the cute, cuddly newborn face you have in the hospital is quickly forgotten as you come home and realize the baby does not sleep all the time like they did in the hospital room when you were there with nurses to help you. But I feel like that's something really important to have communication with too, because then you have these expectations of, well, I really hope my husband does this, or I really hope my wife knows that, like, I want her to do this. And so we have found it's important to, like, communicate, be like, hey, like, I was up all night with the baby, can you help get the older kids ready in the morning? Or, it'd be very easy, especially when starting a family, to let little things annoy you, because one, you're not getting very much sleep, and two, you're not getting much sleep. I feel like when you're tired, things tend to be like, I don't know, it's easier to blow things out of proportion.
And expectations in family, I know some things that you have to be flexible with is a lot of times you think that, okay, this is, the expectation is for the wife, the general expectation is that the wife does the cooking, does the laundry and things like that. One thing that I tried to make sure I didn't give into was that expectation. My own mindset is that some of those things are things that I can help out with. I know that it's been a huge encouragement to Liz when I went and either helped make dinner or I cleaned the table for her while she's trying to deal with Owen potentially and work with him. The girls, we try to get them involved as well. But expectations in raising kids, honestly, I don't know if I had any high-flying expectations, so to speak, because with the first one, you hear all the stuff, you're taught biblical principles on how to raise children, but until you're really doing it, it's not exactly a textbook way of doing things all the time.
But I would say, like with anything in marriage or with anything in life, really, like communication. And I don't know if we're doing a video on communication.
We are.
So, well, I won't talk too much about it though. But like communication is so key, because if you're not communicating expectations, whether it be with your family, in a marriage, just in a relationship, if you're just dating, if you're not communicating those expectations, like it's very easy to get hurt. It's very easy to get upset at each other because you're holding these levels or almost like these standards in your mind that if you're not letting the other person know what those standards are, like of course they're gonna fail. Like I can't be angry all day that Aaron, like, I don't know, didn't take out the garbage if I never mentioned, hey, do you mind taking out the garbage? Like, how does he know it's full? Like, he hasn't been home all day. Or like that's a silly example, but or even like him maybe planning something on Saturday. If I had something planned and then me getting upset all day that, well, I had something planned, I was gonna go ice skating. Why didn't you check with me first instead of, like communication is so important.
And with that expectations, I mean, as a husband and wife, you need to make sure that you're communicating well along those lines, because even in the evenings, or whether you have children or not, in a marriage, there's expectations for just that quiet time together. And your expectation is going to be different, more than likely, than your spouse. And in those expectations, you need to communicate, like Liz mentioned. And
some nights after we put the kids to bed, some nights we want to watch something. Some nights I just really want to talk to Aaron because I haven't talked to another adult all day. So I feel like the longer we've gotten married, we've gotten better at that. Of like he'll sit down and be like, right, do you want to watch our program? Like, can we just talk? And he's really good about just saying, yeah, we can talk, and we'll just sit and chat. Communication is so key, even though it sounds like we're a broken record, and it's not a new idea to communicate, but it's so important.
So just make sure that with your expectations, you're communicating what those expectations are in every area of your life, as a husband, wife, and make sure that whether it's any area really of your marriage, with one another, make sure that you're communicating those expectations.
All right, time for our exciting drawing for a $10 Tim Hortons gift card.
And wonder who the lucky winner will be.
Let me stir up. This is not rigged. We have the names in a red bowl. Aaron, do you want to pick the lucky winner?
And the winner is Dawn Coley.
Dawn, congratulations. We'll be getting you your gift card.
You can remember once again what I pulled out of the Aaron and Liz box. You can email Aaron again at his email address, which will show below.
Or you can text the word unbox to 586-250-1330, and you can just put the answer in the comments box
Of what I pulled out of the Aaron and Liz box today. So we hope you enjoyed video number 2, and we look forward to seeing you
next time on Unboxing Love.